Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you are in this conversation. Why? Because on this show, we talk about things that matter. We talk about things that are going to get you curious about yourself, about your life. And when we get curious, it's an opportunity to expand. And when can expand, we can begin to realize new outcomes. So I'm glad you're here. On the show today, we have Sherry Yellin from the Yellin Group, who specializes in leadership. And if you've been following uh, the episodes that I'm host of, you know that I'm passionate about leadership. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. We need quality leaders in our world, in our companies, in our families. So, welcome to the show, Sherry Yellin.
Thank you. Thank you. Love your reference to curiosity. It really
Mm,
is at the heart of it all.
yeah, I agree. And we're going to talk more about that too. But before we dive into what you do and who you help, I always like to start off with this question. And the reason I'm asking this question is because there's a lot of uncertainty and suffering going on all over the world. I like to remind people that even despite that, we can still be the cause in creating good. And so what I want to ask you is what's going well in your life, either professionally and or personally?
Great question and very timely. And I will say, I want to give myself a little credit first, which sounds a little bizarre, but I finished my dedication page of my book literally 15 minutes before this call. And you're acknowledging all the people that were, have been so beneficial and contributors in your life. But the very last sentence I wrote to my past self, and I
Mm,
said, I see you and you're enough.
mm,
And one of the things that's going really well is that realization that I think it takes a lot of us a long journey to get to a point where you recognize that the strengths and the gifts and the abilities that you have are enough, and that you are enough in making the decisions and moving forward. And it's taken me a while to get there, and it was just a kind of a full circle moment earlier today when I needed to send that in to the editor. And I think that's something that all of us in leadership roles or that are aspiring to that should celebrate.
mm-hmm,
You can learn to trust yourself more than you did in the past.
mm-hmm. Wow, that is so beautiful. And I'm just going to reaffirm that I don't know you, but I do know that you are enough. And I want our viewers to hear that, our listeners to hear that as well. That if you're listening to us right now, I want you to really breathe in, you are enough. You are perfect, whole, and complete just as you are. Now, that does not mean you're done evolving, but you are perfect, whole, and complete. You have all that you need within you. You are resourceful, capable, and flexible. You have what it takes, and it does not mean you're done evolving, but you are enough. What a wonderful message to start the day with.
Thank you. There's a story. It's in the Old Testament, but it's a great story of a widow who is left. Her husband dies, and she's left with her sons. And in that day and age, her husband left her in debt, and they were going to take her sons away from her as payment for his debt, which would have left her in a really tough situation as a woman, at that time. And
Yeah.
so she goes to the prophet and she says, I'm in debt now, and they're going to take my sons, and I don't know what to do. And I just think it's such a great moment because the prophet looks at her and asks her, what do you have in the house? And you know the story. She says, a jar of oil, but that's exactly what she needed. And even though she definitely needed help and she still had a lot to learn, she had what it was going to take to move her through that very dark time and really become wildly successful because the oil just keeps multiplying. And I think sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we when the gremlins start into our heads, we start to devalue
Yeah.
the oil, and that's the thing. That's why you're enough. And
Yes.
if we can hang on to that, that's a message that really resonates with me.
Yeah. Great reminder. Good reminder. So the show is called Vision Pros. So I want to know, what's your vision?
My vision is to equip a world of leaders worth following.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh, to equip a world of leaders worth following. This is a good topic because there are many people in leadership positions today that may not be worth following. I mean, each of us has to ask ourselves that. And there are many people, we were just talking before the show, there are many people in those leadership roles that were placed there, not because they were leaders, but perhaps just because we needed a body to fill that role, right?
Mhm.
Um, they were next in line, or there was no one else, or they were the
Exactly.
best, or they were the best of a not so good list of candidates. There's a million reasons, right, why people get put into leadership positions. And that's not to disparage anybody, but not everybody is ready to be a leader. So, what does it take to be a leader worth following?
I started asking that question a couple of years ago, and we literally have a one question survey. What makes a leader worth following? That we have now asked thousands of people. And definitely themes rise to the top.
Mm,
So, some of the overarching themes, trust is definitely at the top of the list, both in they extend trust and they earn trust. Uh, integrity, is kind of synonymous in a way with trust. That's a good one. But I think bigger than that is that they are people that recognize that results come through relationships. They are
mm.
relationship builders. And it is a very unique skill set that is going to come easier for some and it's going to be more challenging for others. And I won't even venture to say that for some people, it may not ever be a skill set that they can certainly improve, but it may not ever be a skill set that puts them in a position where they need to have that kind of influence over other people. Like if you do the math, most of us will spend 90,000 hours, or more. If you're an entrepreneur, it's probably a lot more of that time at work.
Yeah.
And your leaders can make that time meaningful or they can make it miserable. They can
Mhm.
lead that company into the future and create a great culture that just continues to have impact, or they can kill the very vision that started that organization, which actually may be their vision. There are times where you may be the visionary, you may be the founder, the creator, but you're not able to build the relationships around you to get results. And it's knowing when I may need to step aside and I can still be the visionary, I can still be the founder, but maybe I'm not the best person to be in that leadership role that is conducting myself in such a way that I can also build the relationships that we need for the results that we're going for. That's extreme self awareness, and it requires humility
Mm-hmm.
to be able to recognize that. But it is, to me, a leader worth following is someone who can manage themselves and then build the people around them so that ultimately they step aside.
Yeah. 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 I like so many good things you're saying here. And I just want to bring a spotlight to some of them because I really want our viewers and listeners to hear this. Yeah. One of the strengths of a leader is the ability to assemble a team. And so because the leader, just because you're a leader doesn't mean you have to do it all. In fact, we do not want our leaders attempting to do it all. I talk a lot about leadership on podcasts and with my clients, and the two most important things that in my book are a leader influences the thinking of the people are that they are leading, and number two, enrolls them into a vision of what is possible.
Mm,
Then assemble the team, right?
yes,
Assemble the team and enroll all the people into the vision of what's possible. But that team is going to have different skill sets than I have, right? I'm not meant to be the CEO. I'm not definitely not meant to be the chief IT person. For that, that's not my skill set, right? I'm a great communicator and I can enroll people into a vision, but I need a team around me
yes.
to begin to execute, implement, and create out the impact that I want to make. So what and so you tell me a little bit about what the Yellen Group does for companies.
Well, at the heart, we help, whether we're working with individuals or entire intact teams, help
Mm-hmm.
them better understand how the brain learns best, because that's the equipment that they're working with,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost for themselves, so that they have a better understanding, a greater self awareness, can better regulate, and all the things that we need for self managing, but then also helping them understand how the brain learns best in how
Yes.
they lead and develop their team. And so at the heart of it are 7 brain based strategies. And we really do blend the science of learning with the art of leadership. And it's powerful when leaders can understand why you would approach that conversation that way, or why it's important to delegate and delegate effectively, and actually showing them images, brain scans of this is what your brain looks like when it feels safe and it feels like
Mm,
it belongs, and this is what it looks like when it's under threat. And so just giving some of that science behind it can go a long way. And we do that through one-on-one coaching. We do that through workshops. And then we do that through a really blended approach where we'll work with a team for maybe up to a year. And it's a blend of the workshops and the one-on-one coaching to help them maybe redirect the culture.
yeah.
But even better, when we get to step into a great culture that wants to be sure it's still great 5,
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, the the cul- the quality of a company's culture is going to massively impact the outcomes it produces. And now some company owners don't want to hear that because they would just assume that, look, I hired you, now just get to work and do what I hired you to do. But unfortunately, this species does not work that way,
Oh, if only it would. You know,
right?
how much easier life would be if we could just remove the human element.
Exactly. So if you are a company owner and you're like, oh, really, do we have to have the culture conversation again? Yeah.
Always.
Yes. Right.
Yes. You're never done. There is no
You're
done. There's no graduation date. It's,
exactly.
if you think about personal transformation, let's say you had a resolution to lose weight or get healthy, it's not a one and done.
No.
Let's say you hit every goal. The rest of your life is maintenance.
Yes.
You don't stop working out when you hit the goal and
Exactly.
expect sustainable results. Same
Exactly.
thing with people.
Exactly. And I was just talking with a client this morning about committing. And I reminded her that I said, look, I understand you've made this commitment now. And in an hour from now, you may need to recommit,
Yeah.
right?
Or
It's
10
not it's
minutes.
yes. It's not a one and done because I mean, and to me that's good news because I think a
Mhm.
lot of us we make commitments and then we, quote unquote fail and we feel like a failure. But what I want people to hear is like, no, no, no. Just because you committed in this moment, it doesn't mean that that commitment has incredible staying power. You have to recommit again and again and again because until it's a habitual practice, right? So for me, it's not like, oh, I'm a failure. No, it's like understand this is how the machinery works,
Yes.
right? You need to
And
recommit.
you do. And the default setting of this amazing piece of equipment, for whatever reason, the default setting is moving into blame, defensiveness. If left to its own device, right? If left without that constant reinforcement, it will
Yes.
default to us against them. It will default to being overly committed to being right. It'll default to protection.
Yes, exactly. And I'm really appreciating this conversation, Sherry. And the other thing that I want our leaders to hear too, particularly around this idea of culture. Um, Culture, I'm not when we say culture, at least I'm not talking about just like, having a nice lounge and the latest coffee espresso machine. And that's all that can be part of culture too, but that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about like what's your mindset culture, right?
Mhm.
Is there a culture of safety? Is there a culture of resourcefulness? Is there a culture of collaboration? Yeah, right? Is there a culture of trust? That's what I'm talking about, and that's what always needs to be again recommitting to and having that fostered and cultivated. Would is that are we on the same page about that?
We are. And I'll go one step further and say it is your defined values or beliefs, whatever your organization calls, some people
Yeah.
call it your manifesto, but that you have spent the time to define what are the
Mhm.
values that are going to guide this organization. We've got a lot of great literature now and research around the power of why and what's your why and and that's great. But if we have a why without the how, then how do you find the who? How do you define how you're going to make decisions, how you're going to hire, how are you going to
Mhm.
hold people accountable? How are you going to let that high performer go just because they delivered great results, but they didn't do it in a way that's aligned? So, to me, one of the starting points is making sure that you have clearly defined values. And that's
Mhm.
more than just an exercise and a poster on the wall, but that I know that we are in an amazing place with a company when I can go in and I could, within, maybe an hour or two in a meeting, I could probably guess what their defining values are. Like they're living it out, but they've done that because they first and foremost clearly defined this is it's like the ruler. We're not going to guess how long 12 inches is. Like
Sure.
you have a standard and your values have to be defined. And the biggest train wrecks that we've encountered over 24 years are those organizations that have not taken the time to do that. And then step two is integrated it into their everyday, whether that is how we hire, how we fire, how we treat our clients, how
Yes.
we make financial decisions. It should permeate every every inch of the organization, and that sets the direction for the culture.
Yes. Yeah, great point. And I like this conversation. Um, it reminds me of a chapter in the book I wrote called The Practice of Feeling Good. One of the chapters I wrote is called Your Values Don't Mean Jack, and what you can do about it.
Mm,
You
I
see,
love that.
yeah, because there's something key about what you said. Companies spend a lot of time and money defining their values. They'll go on expensive retreats. Hey, let's get our core values, right? We'll list them out. We'll put a poster on the board, blah, blah, blah. And a year goes by and they're like, not much has changed. Defining our values didn't really move the needle, but it's something what you said. And the point that I make in my book, you see, we all basically have the same values. You and I both value health. You and I
Mhm.
both value financial freedom or stability, freedom of speech. We value health, wealth, relationships, right? Work integrity, and even people who are in ill health value
Value
health.
health.
If you would have asked me many years ago, like, "Hey, Fletcher, do you value financial stability?" I'd be like, "Of course I do." But if you would have looked in my checking and savings account, you would have saw a big fat zero in both of them.
Yes.
What moves the needle is what you hinted at. And that's the standards around the values. It's our standards that breathe life into the values. Values, in my opinion, are simply indicators of preference. I prefer health. I prefer financial stability. I prefer integrity in the workplace. But without the standards, the measurements, how
Mhm.
can we know if we're living into those values? And so what I heard you say was, yeah, we don't just assume we know what 12 inches is. We have a ruler that tells us exactly, and we're going to measure that, you know? Um, so yeah, so I love asking leaders this question, like, well, what is your standard around communication? Can you articulate your standard around how you communicate with your team? Can you what is your standard in your company checking and savings account? Can you
Correct.
tell me, right? Like for me personally, like I always keep I always have a bumper of a minimum of $2,000 in my checking account. That's my standard, right?
Mhm.
Why? Because in my old life, I used to get overdraft fees. So I was like, oh, I need to have a standard around this.
How we learn. And that standard is so important, especially when it gets hard, especially
Yes.
when you have to hold people accountable. But
Yes.
values provide clarity. So,
Yes.
great question. If you've got somebody on your team right now and you think, well, they have this, not so much this. It's so easy to rationalize sometimes because when you're in it, it's hard to step back. But a great question sometimes is, if you hold that behavior up against your values, does it match? Does it fit? And the answer usually is either a hell yes or hell
Or
no,
a
like
hell no.
clarity. Thank you for the clarity, because but you're right. It's an absolute standard, whether however it is showing up and how we make decisions, or how we, hire, how we hold people accountable. If
Yeah,
you have not agreed upon that, and if you've not made it really clear, and talk about another thing that there is no done in reinforcing the values, if you have not done that, then we're all operating off of a different standard.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. We value a clean, common kitchen space, break room.
What does
Okay.
that look like?
Yeah, exactly. What's the standard around that then, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so another way of thinking about it is like we value a good bowling game. Okay, great. Well, let's put up the bumpers because like those are the standards that are going to ensure that we are at least hitting the pins, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, standards help us breathe life into those critical values. So, really
We
good,
have a
really
fun
good.
exercise with that we'll do sometimes, and when we have are bringing in people for a workshop, we'll have them on a piece of paper that we'll have them draw out. We'll make a measurement, let's say 8 3/4 inches. Right. So you just have to draw that out. And so everybody has theirs. But then when they start stacking them up, you got like that. And on the question is what would have made sure that we all had the same perception of 8 3/4 inches? Well, if we had a ruler, values, and it's just a easy way for people to understand. Otherwise, what I believe and what you believe may be very different
Oh,
based on
that is
our life
so
experiences.
brilliant.
It's fun. It's a lot of
Can I
fun.
use that? That is so
Yes,
good.
and it's really fun when you're working with people that are in professions like construction, or where they feel like they're experts in that already. It's really a lot of fun. Yes,
That is
you
so
can use
good.
that exercise.
I am absolutely going to. That is so fun and illustrates what we were just talking about perfectly. Yeah. So good. Um, so Sherry, if people are digging what you're saying and want to connect and or learn more or uh order your new book that's coming out, which is called, hold on, my tablet just closed, which is called The Science of High Performance Leadership.
Yes.
Tell us how we can connect with you.
Well, it's easy. We're at yellingroup.com. And right now you can get on the first to know list. It should, fingers crossed, be out early to mid October. So we're just right there at the deadline for it. We're so excited about the book because in it is packed with practical actions leaders can take. That was very important to me, that we understand the science behind it, but even better, that there are practical applications. And
Mhm.
then there's a link to a portal that has almost 40 additional templates and videos and tools that leaders can take and use immediately. So yes,
Nice.
it's the science of high performance leadership, and then a very long subtitle, but it's important to me, and that is that it's 7 brain-based strategies to become a leader worth following.
Mm,
And
mm.
it really does, it really is a map to how do you build those relationships and how do you build a culture
Yes.
so that you gain true commitment from really talented people.
It sounds like a wonderful and much needed book. And so you can visit Sherry at theyellingroup.com. Is that accurate?
No, just Yellin Group, and there's
Yellen Group.
yeah, and it's no G on Yellin. It's it's just yellingroup.com.
Yeah, and Yellen is Yellin.
Yes,
So yellengroup.com. Connect with Sherry. Check out some of her resources there. Grab a copy of her new book that is soon to be released. And I also just want to say to those leaders out there, the people in leadership positions, thank you for stepping up. Uh, we
yes,
need leaders,
we do. Now more
and
than
it's
ever.
now more than ever, and it's vulnerable to lead. So educate yourself,
Mhm.
stay in the conversation about leadership, become the best leader you can, become a leader worth following. Any last words that you'd like to say before we wrap up here, Sherry?
Well, I think, just my final thoughts is we are in a season of our world where it does matter. It matters maybe more than ever, because with all the ways that we have to connect, we may be the most disconnected our society has ever been. And my other thought is that if you don't want to do the work, if you don't want to do the work on yourself and learning how to lead others more effectively, please step aside. It's okay. We were doing an emerging leaders program one year, and about midpoint, we had someone say to us, I've taken away that I don't want to be in a leadership role. I want to be a great engineer. And we need great engineers, and we need great nurses, and we need great
Hmm.
educators. And it is perfectly okay to acknowledge this is not something I'm called to do. And I don't necessarily want to put the effort into it. I want to put my efforts into something else. And that is completely okay.
Yeah, wise words. Thank you for that. Hey, our guest today has been Sherry Yellin from the Yellin Group, and you can visit her at yellingroup.com. All about leadership, an important topic. And so connect with her, get her a copy of her book. And now it's time for you all to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You do have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.